Welcome to Spotlight Reads.
You see, this is not a story about guilt. It is a story about what it means to live inside an accusation that never, ever explains itself.
So, how does it all begin? Well, it begins unexpectedly with an arrest. An arrest delivered without any reason, right in the presumed sanctuary of a man's own home.
Joseph K., he's seized, but not by overt force. No, it's something much more subtle. It's a procedure so bizarre it just paralyzes thought. It makes the very idea of resistance seem not just futile, but utterly absurd. The whole event is so drained of logic that it just short-circuits the mind's ability to even react.
And the agents of this authority, well, they aren't monsters. Not at all. They're mundane, almost oafish. They eat his breakfast. They can't answer a single one of his questions. But they operate with this absolute certainty, the kind of certainty that comes from being a small, unthinking cog in a very large machine. And then they tell him he's under arrest, but also free to go about his business. It's a contradiction, and it's only the first of many.
And the warders, they offer a piece of doctrine. They say the authorities they serve, they just don't make mistakes. You see, they don't hunt for crime, because, as they see it, the law itself is just naturally drawn toward the guilty. And that right there, that reframes the entire idea of justice. An accusation is no longer the start of an investigation. No, it's already the conclusion. So, the search for the court begins. But what Kay discovers is that the court, it isn't a place you can just go to. It's a condition you find yourself in. It's the very atmosphere you breathe. And this judicial system, you won't find it in some grand stone building meant to inspire awe. No. You find it in the squalid, overcrowded departments of the poor. Justice, in this world, is administered in an attic, surrounded by dirty laundry and the constant noise of everyday life.
And it doesn't stop there. Every space becomes an extension of the court. The bank, where Kay works, his own bedroom, the dirty corridors of a tenement building. Suddenly, the lines between public, private, and professional life just dissolve. The entire world becomes a courtroom.
So you start to realize there is no outside. The court's jurisdiction is total. Its offices seem to occupy every space, and at the same time, no space at all. It operates in the gaps, in the corridors, in the attics. It places the accused inside a world that's been completely reconfigured into a prison, but a prison without walls. And from a prison like that, there can be no exit.
Which brings us to the trial itself, a trial that has no substance, only procedure. The punishment, then, isn't some future sentence you're waiting for. No, the punishment is the process itself, unfolding every single day right here in the present. Kay is just drawn into this bureaucratic labyrinth. It's a machine, really, but it's not designed to find truth. It's designed simply to perpetuate its own motion. His days are consumed by attending pointless hearings. All his energy is spent writing petitions that just vanish into some dusty archive. Life becomes an endless wait in stuffy, suffocating rooms, right alongside all the others who have been swallowed by the very same system.
Because the goal is not to reach a conclusion. The goal is to keep the proceedings going, indefinitely. It is a war of attrition, one waged directly against the soul of the accused. Think about it. The system doesn't need to declare you guilty when it can just grind you into dust.
Now, this unexplained accusation, it's like a poison. It works its way inward, slowly corroding the self. Because when the mind is starved of any external facts, what does it do? It begins to feed on itself. So the defendant, Kay, who was initially so defiant in his innocence, he begins to change. The constant pressure of the case, its sheer, suffocating omnipresence, it forces a transformation. The thought of it never, ever leaves him. And he becomes an agent of his own prosecution, obsessively searching his own life for the unknown crime.
And this is the central problem, isn't it? If the charge is unknown, how can you possibly mount a defense? Kay resolves to write a plea, a detailed autobiography, of all things, hoping that if he documents his entire life, he might accidentally stumble upon the one event that justifies his arrest. He is forced to treat his own past as a crime scene.
At this point, guilt is no longer some legal status to be determined.
It metastasizes. It becomes an existential condition. A kind of circular logic takes hold. To be accused is to be guilty. And that leaves the psyche with no alternative but to adapt to the confines of this new reality. Then intermediaries appear, people who offer assistance, connections, secret knowledge. But you quickly learn they are merely functionaries of the very system they pretend to fight. There's a lawyer who's far more interested in process than in progress. A painter who boasts of his connections to lecherous judges. A priest who explains the majesty of the law by telling parables about its impenetrable nature. But none of these so-called guides offer any clarity. All they offer are different ways to manage the endless process. Different ways to become a better, more efficient prisoner. You see, in this system, even hope is systematized. It's packaged into these neat, bureaucratic options that offer no real freedom at all. There's definite acquittal, but that's just a legend. It never actually happens. There's ostensible acquittal, a temporary reprieve before you're inevitably arrested again. And then there's postponement, which is just the art of keeping your case in its lowest stages forever. These aren't paths to freedom. They're just different classifications of despair.
And the end, it doesn't arrive as some dramatic climax. There's no final confrontation. No, it comes as an administrative task, something carried out with quiet, cold efficiency.
On the eve of his 31st birthday, two men arrive. They're polite, formal. There is no verdict read. No final explanation is ever given. The process simply terminates.
They lead him to a quarry, and their manner is courteous, completely devoid of emotion. They aren't executioners in the passionate sense of the word. They're more like clerks, just completing a file. Violence itself has become procedural.
And his final thought, it isn't about innocence or guilt. It isn't about justice or injustice. It's about the shame of a death that has no meaning, an end without any dignity. It's the shame of dying like a dog, processed by an incomprehensible system. And this shame he feels, it will outlive him.
This is Spotlight Reads, Face the Abyss.
The trial is not about guilt. It is about procedure without explanation. In Kafka's world, you are not accused. You are processed. No one tells you what you did wrong, because the system no longer needs reasons. Participation itself becomes the crime. Authority does not shout here. It does not threaten. It simply continues. Endless paperwork replaces justice. Confusion replaces resistance. And obedience grows not from fear, but from exhaustion. You search for answers, but every door leads to another corridor. Every question generates another form. The terror of the trial is not punishment. It is permanence. A system so vast, so abstract, that responsibility dissolves. And guilt exists without a crime. Kafka shows us a truth that still defines modern life. When power becomes procedural, escape becomes impossible.